Hey, it's me, MLP. Here is chapter 74 of Rapid Fight Online, and this one is titled First Time. Just a side note before we start, there is an adult scene in here that I have cut out, but I will put the link in the description. We don't have to do this if you don't want to, you said when you felt like he was stalling. I'm just taking my time to enjoy this, he said with a gentle smile. You snuggled into him more, and he removed his hand from your head and then pulled back from your hug and sat down beside you on the bed. Tenderly he took your hand and held it between his, and you gave him a little smile and leaned across to kiss him on the cheek. His skin felt warm against your lips, and when you pulled back you saw he was blushing and the tips of his ears had gone red. "Cheeky," you whispered, and his lips pressed into a thin, wobbly line as he tucked his head in further. "That's the first time you've called me by my first name," he whispered shyly. "Is it?" you asked with surprise. "I'm sure I've called you by your first name before." He shook his head. "No, this is the first time." "Well, I hope it's okay that I call you Jiki. I just feel like it's fitting." He nodded his head rapidly and intertwined his fingers with your fingers, then lifted your hand to his lips, gently kissing the back of it. You smiled shyly and leaned your head against his shoulder. He put your hand back down and let go of it so that he could put his arm around you, and you both lay back on the bed together, a little more comfortable. You rolled onto your side and snuggled into him, resting one leg over his, which seemed to get his heart racing because you could feel it thumping against the palms of your hands as you placed them on his chest. "Is this too much?" you whispered to him. "No," he replied in a shaky voice. "I like it too much." "You cute," you giggled, leaning in and rubbing your nose against his cheek. He turned his head to you and your lips met, then parted. You lay there, kissing gently and exploring each other's mouths with your tongues, getting more comfortable with the setting. As Tamaki's heart rate stabilised, you gently pulled your body up on top of his and lay on him, your knees either side of his hips. You desperately wanted to rock back and forth a little. He nodded into your hands, giving you a small smile. You leaned in and kissed the tip of his nose, then pulled back. "Did you want to clean up and then we can go and get dinner? Did you want to cook together?" you asked. "That would be really nice," he said with another soft smile, his eyes holding a gentle look to them. You grinned back and then let his cheeks go and rolled away from him so you could sit up and get your clothes back on. As you were struggling to pull your clothes on, your head popped up through the top of your undershirt and you came face to face with Tamaki, who had silently walked over to give you a kiss, but because he was so silent, you were a little surprised to find him suddenly in front of you and let out a little squeak of surprise, which surprised Tamaki, and he let out a little screech of fright, making you both recoil. Immediately you read the situation and laughed, realizing that you had gotten a fright from seeing him suddenly so close, and then when you weren't expecting it, and he had gotten a fright from your little squeak of surprise as he wasn't expecting you to react like that, nor make a noise like that. "I'm sorry," you laughed, bending over a little to put your hands on your knees. "I didn't expect you so close." "Your squeak scared me," he replied, trembling a little. You straightened and walked over to him to hug him, and then took his hands in yours. "Let's go," you said happily, leading him to the door of the bedroom and letting yourselves out. After getting a shopping bag ready and grabbing your phone and wallet, you both headed out the door, walking hand in hand off down to the local store. "What did you want to make for dinner?" you asked him. "I haven't had clam soup in a long time," he said to you as he walked. "Clam soup it is," you replied. "I've never made it before, so maybe you can show me?" He nodded. "It's a nice soup and filling too." "Sounds good to me," you replied with a smile. Into the store you walked, grabbing a shopping basket as you walked past the stack by the door. "Okay, so what do we need?" you asked with a smile. "Clams," he replied, and you chuckled. "Yes, I figured as much. Do we need garlic?" He nodded and headed for the fresh fruit and vegetables section, easily locating the garlic bulbs and picking one out. "You know your way around here," you commented with a smile. "I like to cook," he replied to you, as he put the bulb in the basket and moved on to get the next lot of things. "That's really hot. I like that you can cook," you commented, as he looked over some other vegetables there. Do you like that?" he asked shyly with a blush, a smile playing on his lips. "Yeah," you grinned. "I'll cook for you any time you want," he said shyly, and you took his hand, then leaned up and kissed his cheek. "Thank you, Jiki." His blush deepened and he looked away as the blush remained on his face, colouring right to the tips of his ears. Around the shop you went, getting all the items you'd need for dinner, and once you'd gathered everything you headed back to his place. No one was home still, and you started setting up in the kitchen, pulling chopping boards out and chatting as you went. "This feels like our place in Arifo," you said with a smile as you reached up and wrapped your arms around his neck and pulled your front against his. "It does, doesn't it?" he replied with a small smile. "Mm-hmm," you grinned, giving him a little kiss and then pulling back. "Okay, super chef, show me how you make this clam soup." Tamaki was surprisingly confident around the kitchen and handled all the food with the greatest of care. "My food is my quirk," he said to you as he gently boiled the clams. "I need to make sure I handle the cooking with care." You smiled. "That's quite cute, really." You reached for a spoon and took a little of the clam broth to taste, blowing on it gently before sipping it. That's really nice." Tamaki smiled and gave you a loving look, then went back to preparing the other ingredients while you watched him work. "Is there anything I can help with?" you asked. "I can show you how to crack open the clams," he said, taking the pot off the stove and taking it to the sink. "Yes, please, I've never done it before." Tamaki used tongs to pick out 2 freshly boiled clams and brought them back to you in a bowl. "So," he said, picking one out and holding it in his hands in a way that wouldn't burn him, should hot water come out when he cracked the clamshell open. "You just take the edges here and crack them." He cracked it open and handed the freshly cooked clam for you to try. You sucked it off the shell and chewed it down. You hummed, giving him a thumbs up. He then cracked one for himself and ate it, and then held his hand up and, using his quirk, turned his fist into a clamshell. "Oh wow!" you gasped in awe. "Oh, it really does take on all the attributes straight away, huh?" You took his clammed fist in your hand and felt it, rubbing your fingers all over the shell. "It feels exactly the sameness as a real clam." Tamaki nodded and smiled. "It's a good quirk to have. I like it." "I like my quirk too, but I really need to practice on the quick switch." And there ends chapter 74. Stay tuned for chapter 75.